Today. Welcome to this conversation, Road to 50 Million. Today's Road to 50 Million, kind of late in the day compared to a lot of days, but that's okay. I want to talk today about mediocrity. Oh, I forgot to pull my microphone down. Ooh, terrible thing. I forgot to pull it down, and now it's making noise as I move it. I know it does because there's a springy sound. Sorry if that is wrecking your audio. I want to talk about mediocrity because one of the things I talk about as a coach is I like to help people end addiction to mediocrity. And in that context, I say it like an addiction to mediocrity is a bad thing. But I want to talk about what mediocrity is. Mediocrity is the way I'm using it at least, is settling for what's far below your capability. Now, if I am cleaning up something or if I'm mowing the lawn, there's a level at which I mow the lawn, and that's good enough. That's how I mow the lawn, and I don't feel like I need to make sure every blade of grass is just right. And those diagonal lines that you get with a beautiful mower are essential. I don't do that. I don't want to. I don't want to take the time to make everything, those I've seen them, and once in a while I've done it, but very seldom because it takes a lot of extra work, and I have something else I'd rather do with the time. So that's not what I mean when I say mediocrity. Mediocrity is when we know in our hearts we want to do better, or we believe we should, or could, or we're called to do better, but we don't. And the don't is often this feeling of, I can't, I'm not good enough, I won't, I'll never amount to anything. I just submitted a chapter to a compilation book that's been underway for many months, almost a year, I think. And I have a lot of admiration for the woman that's putting this together. And it's called A Book About Healing and Growth. And it'll come out here in 3 or 4 weeks, and I'll show it to you when we do. And I've had the opportunity to speak at several of her summits over the last year and a half, and I like what she's about. And the speakers at the summits are all people that have gone through all kinds of life struggles and problems and difficulties and have then made a choice to live into a far more powerful state. So, what's the difference between simply deciding something is enough and living a life addicted to mediocrity? Well, that's a really important question because, first of all, mediocrity carries with it a sad feeling. I just, did barely enough to get by. That is an attitude that, for me at least, has been really destructive. I feel way different when I put a lot of effort and I really get something done excellent, when I live at excellence. It was a quote that I heard somewhere that said, someone who's elevated themselves to the level of excellence is never again satisfied with anything else. Well, addiction is a compulsive behavior. And a compulsive behavior that doesn't serve you is a barrier to your growth and progress, or mine too. And I won't talk about you, I'll talk about mine. I had a lot of compulsive behaviors when I was really allowing myself just to skate by and live in the throes of mediocrity without really demanding of myself the kind of excellence that I do now. I'm grateful that I've been able to make that change. Now, let's talk for just a minute about what this whole road to 50 million is. If you've watched some of the other ones, I do this every day. And the reason is because in this year, from October 14th, last month, the next October 14th, that 12-month period, I'm going to reach 50 million people. And my goal in reaching them isn't just to say hi, but it's to invite each one of those 50 million to intentionally consider how they're living their life. And I'll just talk to you since you're watching. And I talk to myself in the mirror every morning. And here are the questions. Am I living at the very best that I can? Am I living at my full potential? Am I doing what I know I was called to do, agreed to do, want to do? Am I doing that, or am I just settling for what's easy and obvious? Sometimes I have done that, and even for long periods of time, and sort of abdicated the opportunity that I have to choose and create what I want to be, to actually create my life every day. That didn't go well for me. I didn't feel good every day. Oh, sometimes I was making a lot of money and I was really important, but I wasn't happy. Today, even if I try and fail and I do something and flop all over the ground, kind of boink, 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 I still am happy. Why? Because I'm really giving it all that I can. I've made a choice to not settle for what's easy and obvious, but to try to commit to do something really well. So the road to 50 million is just my chronicling of my journey, my work this year to reach 50 million people and encourage and help and lift and get acquainted with people who are trying that on their own, who are trying to help others. Boy, I've met some amazing people. In this 10 days that I've been doing this, I've had people reach out. I'm just amazed. I love it. People that are committed in their own hearts and in their own lives to lift and bless those around them. I'm heartened. I'm excited. There seems to be an awakening in the world, of people who are committed to do more, to lift themselves up, and more importantly, to lift others up. We're happiest as human beings when we're lifting, blessing, serving, loving, being in creativity and in kindness and compassion and forgiveness and all those squishy words. Well, you know what? Love is the energy that holds the universe together. Now, think about it. That might sound woo-woo, but when you have negativity, hate, anger, frustration, that tends to drive things apart. People, relationships. It's kind of the law of entropy and the second law of thermodynamics. Things fall apart. Love, on the other hand, is like magnetism. It's a very attractive force. People enjoy being around that kind of positivity and happiness and joy and lifting, love. That's a very attractive force. So just in a very colloquial way, just look around and see where you like to be. Being around people that are negative and hateful and spiteful and angry and blaming and all that, it's not a lot of fun. That wears out in about 2 seconds. On the other hand, it's easy, or at least it was for me during decades, to just do what I had to do to get by, just enough to fool people around me. And it reminds me of that poem, The Man in the Glass. And I'm not going to say the whole thing, but it says, you can fool the whole world down the pathway of years and get pats on the back as you pass. But your final reward will be heartache and tears if you've cheated the man or woman in the glass. And of course, it's talking about the mirror, and that is one of the reasons why I look at myself every morning and every night in the mirror and make an assessment. I'm kind, I'm loving, I'm forgiving, but I'm also honest. Did I do what I could? Was I true to the declarations that I've made about myself? I have a thing called a PTAC, which is a personal truth and commitment statement. And it's pretty bold and has some very powerful but true declarations about who I am. And of course, I'm not perfect. And so the number of times when I'm completely satisfied would be most of them, most days. Not because I was perfect, but I'm satisfied with the effort, not in mediocrity, because I did give it all that I had. I leaned into the opportunities. I leaned into each conversation. I leaned into every thing that I was doing. So today's an example. I edited some chapters in a client's book, and I wrote some instructions up for part of our team that does work with my wife. And I made a video to go with part of that book launch I talked about. And I worked in the studio, which is over there. I'm pointing over there, the recording studio, performing, working on several songs. I practiced a lot on the piano and I worked on my voice, singing, and I worked hard and I looked at the recordings and I was very objective, but critical, not negatively, but objective about them. So when I go to bed tonight, I didn't live today in mediocrity. I lived it all in. I don't even ask, was I perfect? I'm not even sure what that means, because then that implies that I have some arbitrary standard of perfection and that it's right, and it's not. So, my invitation to you today, in this context of helping each one of us, me and you and all of us, live that ultimate life, a life of purpose, prosperity, and joy, is number one, start every day with a commitment to who you're going to be and what you're going to do. Number two, lean into every single conversation, opportunity, and everything. All in, all in. Why would we live anything other than full out? And number three, when you go to bed tonight or tomorrow night, assess. Be kind, be loving, be forgiving. There's a giant difference between kindness and compassion and just letting things slide. That's not what we're talking about, but you know that. Letting things slide is kind of making excuses. That's addiction to mediocrity. That's doing the easy and obvious. Now, it goes without saying that you're free to live your life any way you want, and you will, and you are, and you do. So far be it for me to tell you how to do anything, because I'm not and I wouldn't. What I have noticed in my own life is when I just lived enough to get by, when I was addicted to mediocrity, when I did the easy and obvious, and when I really did everything just to fool those around me or to get by, I wasn't happy. What I know now is when I hold myself to a high standard and I try hard and I assess my day and I commit and I assess it at night and everything, I'm way happier. And I didn't used to think that. I used to think, well, it'd be critical and negative and have all the voices in my head, which I used to have, and now they're all gone. And I love every single day that I get the joy and privilege of talking to you, being with you, being in the world, and creating stuff. You are a divine being. You have every right to live a life of purpose, prosperity, and joy every single day. That's available to you. That's what my whole quest is about. I'm going to help 50 million people this year discover and develop and serve with their gifts, because that's the way to prosperity. It's the way to happiness, and it's the way to unconditional joy. I learned that the hard way. I'm hoping with this work for the year, not hoping, expecting and committing to help people learn better and faster than I did. So I give you this invitation to love yourselves, forgive yourselves, and don't allow mediocrity. We, you, me, we're better than that. Not to be better, but because we have the opportunity to add good to the world. You know, we add something. We add carbon dioxide, right, every time we breathe. But we also have the opportunity to add something else. And since we get to choose what we add to the world, my invitation to me and to you, excuse me, is to add good to the world. We'll see you tomorrow.